Our scripture reading this morning is from the Old Testament, from the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 61. Just a short reading, verses 1 to 3, and Anna Dixon's going to come and read that for us.
Isaiah 61, verses 1 to 3. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is on me, because the Lord has anointed me to preach good news to the poor. He has sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim freedom for the captives and release from darkness for the prisoners, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favour and the day of vengeance of our God, to comfort all who mourn, and provide for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty instead of ashes, and the oil of gladness instead of mourning, and a garment of praise instead of a spirit of despair. They will be called oaks of the righteous, a planting of the Lord for the display of his splendour.
Just now in our service, Mark and Karen Robinson from Latin Link are going to come and share with us. I say from Latin Link, they were away for a year in Peru with Latin Link, and Mark's done some other stuff with them. Mark and I grew up together in First Lisburn Presbyterian and through Wallace High School as well, and we've known each other a long time. Mark was actually my best man at my wedding, so it's great to have you guys here, and really looking forward to hearing from you. So if you'd like to join us at the front here, that would be great.
Good morning, everybody. We're Mark and Karen Robinson, and we live in East Belfast, and I'm a social worker. Mark's a teacher. Normally we would be at Willowfield on a Sunday morning down on the Woodstock Road, but today we're here, and thank you so much for having us. Thank you, Ashley, for inviting us to come and share a bit about where we were last year. As Ashley said, we spent the last year with Latin Link on a mission year working in Peru. And we're going to go on and tell you a wee bit more about that. But I suppose the first question is, why did we decide to do that? And it's not sort of a usual thing for a lot of people to want to do, but it's something Mark and I had always been interested in. We've both done a lot of short-term mission in the past. We're both keen to go and use the skills that we've got in teaching and social work in another place. And we did feel that we've been blessed with a lot in our lives, and we just wanted an opportunity to give a bit back. So it wasn't Peru that we were necessarily passionate about at the beginning. It was just that we wanted to go somewhere. So after a lot of thinking and praying about it, we decided to start pushing a few doors, and they all seemed to open very quickly. And so we ended up going to Peru with Latin Link.
Okay. I hope this works. Good morning. Peru is an amazing place. Just before we left for Peru, we were getting some plumbing work done in our house in Belfast, and the Russian plumber said to us, "Why do you want to waste your life going to Peru? What are you doing? Why?" I'll always remember it because it was waste your life. And he said, "Why take a year and go there? What a waste." And I couldn't quite get over his, frankness and outspokenness, but to him, basically, this wouldn't make any sense, going to live in Peru. I don't know if that's a Russian thing or if that's just illustrative of many people's mindsets that, why go? But as I say, Peru is an amazing country. Maybe I want to hear what you think about Peru. So when I say the word Peru, what are some of the things that come to mind? You can just shout them out and we'll see how you get on. What do you think of when you hear Peru? What's that, sorry? Yes, Machu Picchu. Yes, good. One of the new 7 wonders of the world. Anything else? Anyone? Peru? Yes, the warm hats that you see with the tassels coming down. Good. Llamas? Yes, the animal. The natives, the Quechua people. Very good. Anything else? Yes, the big terraces around the sides. Yep, absolutely. And guinea pigs. Guinea pigs are a delicacy of, you eat guinea pigs in the Andean countries, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Peru, and you really are honored if you're given a guinea pig. It doesn't taste very nice. It's like leathery, chicken. But that's their delicacy. Okay, let's see if we got these right. There's some images to put up on the screen here. Let's have a look at them and see if they... Yep, there's Machu Picchu, which is stunning, a mountain scenery, which we had the chance to visit. Dogs are not domesticated there. They're wild and very dangerous. This is our city where we lived for the year. It's called Huaraz. It's beautiful, and that's Mount Huascaran in the background, which was stunning. Spicy salsa. Chinese restaurants, oddly, are everywhere. They're called chifas. Volkswagen Beetles of every different color are very, very common. And so is this. It's called a moto taxi. It's like a rickshaw tuk-tuk that brings you about the place. Beautiful beaches on the Pacific coast. High-altitude glaciers. There we go. There's the Quechua people, the indigenous, in their native clothes. Lots of poverty as well. The government can't invest in all the different rural hinterlands. Very cute, small babies. That's the local market, so that's their Tesco's. Down the road, chickens off a hook, raw chickens. Inca Cola is their national drink. It's like the Coca-Cola version. Again, Quechua farmers. These are called shakshas. They're like Peruvian Morris dancers. Catholicism is very, very strong. That's a picture of the flat that we lived in. The view from our roof in the evening time over a sunset was stunning. The card game Uno that you play with the kids in the orphanage that we worked in. Colonial Spanish buildings in Lima, the capital, which is beautiful. Volleyball, the national sport, which is played everywhere. You just string up a net. Cakes at birthday celebrations. And then throwing your face into the cake, which is customary. And then the aftermath of throwing said face in the cake. And then that is the kids' home that we volunteered in. Oh yes, and llamas, of course, with sunglasses. Again, Quechua women up at the high altitudes. And this kind of typical dress, which you'll see more of in a second, was very, very common. Beautiful mountain ranges. Fresh fruit and veg, which is much cheaper than if you go into Tesco's here. Street sellers, that lady is selling pork. And then we're back to the start again with Machu Picchu. So hopefully that paints kind of a more colorful, vivid picture of what our day-to-day life was like during our time in Peru. But that's just on the screen, so we thought it might be a good idea if we could actually bring that to the front so you could see it for yourselves in 3D. So for this, we need 3 volunteers. The younger, the smaller, the better. So if there's any kids, I can see there's one. There's one very well-dressed young man sitting there. Do you want to come on up? Good man. Are there any more? We need 2 more. They don't have to be quite as well-dressed. Is there a little girl at the back? Trying to hide? Brilliant. And we need 1 more. Hello. We need 1 more. There's none left. Ashley Parks, what a great idea. Okay. Now, what's your name? William. Good man, William. You can come on up here. Stand at the front. Now, William is going to represent an area of the work that we were involved in Huaraz. And for this, William's going to put on his Peru national football shirt. Can you put that on over your waistcoat? And, yeah, you guessed this one. This is his hat that he wears. These are very, very common. At high altitudes in places like Peru, it gets very cold, especially at night. So William's going to put this on. This is his Peruvian hat. Good man. Look at that, perfect fit. And then lastly, we have here some shoe polish. Okay, so you hold that. Don't put it in your face. William here is representative of a shoe shine boy. And this was an area of ministry that I worked in Huaraz. Kind of the default job for many people who don't have, who can't get easy employment is to shine shoes in the local square. And so this is really common, actually. It's quite scary. And they would be this. What age are you, William?
7.
William's 7. So that would be quite common, 7, 8, 9-year-olds. And they would go around with their shoe polish in a big wooden box. And they would ask people, can I shine your shoe? And they would literally be given the equivalent of 25p for doing it. And you'd get all these people with really dirty shoes, and William would give it a good scrub, and that would be his version of employment. The only problem is he's doing this instead of going to school. So obviously that's denying him an education. What we did was go to him and share stories from the Bible, get alongside his family, things like this, and work in a much more social-based ministry role. Good man, William. You can stay there. Okay. What's your name? Ruby. Lovely name. Ruby, come on up. Ruby is, what age are you, Ruby? 5 years old? Wow. Okay, let's see what we have in here for you. A llama. Well, a small llama. This is like a giant sheep, and they're very common where we lived. And it's very, very soft. What else do we have? Fruit. Okay, bananas. These are quite heavy. Do you think you can hold them? Have a go. Oh, look at those big muscles. Easy. Okay, so a llama, a fruit, and then Karen's going to dress Ruby in a blanket. Now, this is a traditional, colourful Quechua blanket that they would wear, and Ruby's going to be a street seller in this. So there she has it. Ruby, you can stand up on the little step there beside William. Again, it's uncanny. Okay, so there she is. She's got this blanket. Now, if we were to do this properly, I'd put the bananas in the back. There's a little pouch in the back of her blanket where you can have anything from bananas to babies to... I never saw a llama in there. I think that's a little bit too... A baby llama. But let's see. Can you hold those? Oh. Okay, very good. Now, this is an example of multitasking, because Ruby would be selling her produce on one side, and then maybe she'd have her sheep and her llama on the other side. And there was a picture on the screen there of a lady walking down with that very blanket on her back, with llamas and sheep and pigs and food and all sorts going on. So that's the second image of Peru that you see. Okay, Ashley. I could tell you a story or two about Ashley. Okay, Ashley is, you're going to be the Peruvian farmer. So this was the third common image that we would see. Here's your poncho. We put that on. This was the third common image that we would see in Peru. Huaraz was quite a rural town. It was about, as Karen said, I think the same size population-wise as Bangor would be. And this would be, that's a nice fit. This would be a common poncho that you'd see that you can buy in the market. They're really, really cheap, but they're made of llama's wool and cotton, and they're very, very warm. And then he would have his panpipes. So, very good. It's like you've done it all your life. So if you go and stand beside Ruby there, Ashley. Very good. This was our life for our time in Peru. And as Karen said, it was for a year. But sometimes visually, for us when we went out, it was so, so different from what we would experience visually living in Belfast. You don't really see this. There are probably child protection laws against this sort of thing. Work laws, yeah, there would be, you can't really sell street food here. There's laws against that as well. And then lastly, there should be some sort of law against you dressing up like that. So I hope that's made it more visual and vivid. Thank you very much. Maybe they deserve a round of applause. I think they've done really well. Thank you. Good man. Thank you. So, excellent, well done. Thank you very much. Whenever we first landed in Peru, we spent the first 10 weeks in Lima, which is the capital. It was on the news for all the wrong reasons just when we came back from Peru, actually, for the drug smuggling. We didn't know them, we never met them. That's the first question everyone seemed to ask us when we got home. Do you know the Northern Irish girl in Peru? No, we don't. But we spent 10 weeks from September to November, really for Karen to go to language school. I could speak Spanish. Karen hadn't spoken it in a while, so she spent 2 months at a language school, which was very, very intensive. It was 4 hours a day of only Spanish. She wasn't allowed to speak English, and much of that time was spent in one-on-one intensive study with local Peruvians, and then she would come home and have to do the homework. So I really did feel for her, sore heads and all sorts of things. But it really paid off. Meanwhile, I didn't go to language school. I worked with a ministry that was focused on the shanty towns around Lima. Lima has a population of between 9 and 10 million, so it's a big, big city, and much of that is just urban sprawl up around the desert mountains. So it's not a very pretty city. In fact, it's very, very polluted, but lots of shanty towns have appeared around the outside. Makeshift houses built up the edges of hills, not very, very safe. But Latin Link, who we were with, had a missionary who'd been there for 30 years from England called Margaret, and she had built up fantastic relationships with lots of different churches around Lima. So I went and helped in a youth group there in a discipleship role, and that was then our church on Sunday. And we had the privilege of going back to see them a few months after we left. Some of them got baptized, which was a great experience. And then both of us went on Thursdays to another further away place called Loreen, where Margaret again was working with a family that had lots of difficulties and issues going on. So that was a fantastic sort of introduction to Peruvian life for us at the first 2 or 3 weeks of our time in Peru.
Okay, we did have a video to show you, but unfortunately it's not working, so I apologise for that. You're going to have to listen to me instead. In November, we'd been in Peru for 2 months, and it was time for us to leave Lima and go up 10,000 feet into the rural Andes. You saw a photo of it before. It was a really beautiful, beautiful place surrounded by big white mountains, and it's where a lot of the indigenous people lived, and that was where we were to be based for the most of our year. It is, as Mark said, got about a population size of Bangor, and sort of the closest city to Huaraz is Lima, so it was 8 hours away at the top of a mountain. So at times we did feel quite isolated and far away from civilization, but it was a good experience. And when we were there, we lived in a flat, which was at the top of a hill, which was a challenge because it meant any time we went out, we always had to climb a hill to go back home. But one of the advantages was that we had the most beautiful views from our roof, and we could see the beautiful mountains and surroundings. So it was a lovely place to live. When we were there, we were working with an organisation called Arco Iris, which means rainbow in Spanish. And basically how Latin Link works is it's a Christian mission organisation that works throughout Latin America, in both South and Central America, and it partners with locally based charities that are already set up there by locals, and tries to offer resources and people to help keep those charities going. So when we were there, the organisation we worked with was called Arco Iris, and they have lots of different areas they work in. They work in the surrounding mountains with indigenous people through kindergartens and trying to promote education, and also through churches. They run a sewing workshop which employs local ladies and then goes and sells their products. And then the profits that come from that help the ladies that work there, but also help to support the children's home, which is another thing they run. And they have a feeding program, which is for kids who've been identified as being at risk in Huaraz. They identified the 30 most needy families, and then every day they had homework clubs and food also provided for them. What else? They had a street kids ministry, which Mark spent a lot of his time working with, and a bakery as well. So they're in lots of different areas. It was set up about 12 years ago by a Spanish doctor, and it's just kind of grown from there. But when we were there, we were working partly in the feeding program, partly in the street kids ministry, and we helped with publicity and translation for the Arco Iris website, but also for the sewing workshop. But I suppose most of our time was spent in the children's home. And when we were in the children's home, we did a range of different activities. We would take them out into the town, we would take them to the park, and we would help them with their homeworks. We would do sport with them. I did a weekly craft class with them. It was sort of a range of things, of trying to do some special activities like special events around St. Patrick's Day and Easter, but also normal things that, so we would consider normal things that families do and which they don't have the opportunity to do because they don't have parents. And then with some of the donations we'd raised before we Lent, we were able to have a few day trips. One day we took them down to the sea, which was about a 6-hour bus journey away, and some of them had never seen the sea before, so that was really special. And then another day we took them out into the mountains in the nearby lake. So yeah, I think for both of us we would say the children's home was the highlight of our time there, but really worthwhile as well. Sort of everything we were doing was with the idea of sharing God's love. And it was sort of an example of, we weren't going out and doing direct evangelism, and we weren't always having big events, but it was much more in kind of how we spent every day with the kids and trying to teach them a bit more about God, but also about His love for them. And then finally, whenever we were there, we went to a church, and it was a Church of the Nazarene, which neither of us had had any experience of before. Very small church. There was only about 12 members. And for us, that was actually a really positive experience because we got to learn a lot about what it's like to live in community. We saw examples of people really caring for each other, of people just really genuine in their faith and their love of God and how they expressed that. And through that, they also did a kids' outreach, which we were involved in. So really varied and diverse time and good fun.
We're almost finished. So I think it just as Karen talks about that, it really hits home with me how 8 hours it took to get from our town to the capital. And we were having to go back and forth quite a bit, but it really puts it in perspective. That's maybe 8 hours from the top of Ireland to the bottom. And you would never really think of doing that in one go. But the distances, they're all relative. And it soon became quite normal for us to do big, long journeys. But I think the year we have spent in Peru is, without doubt, has been for us the most challenging year we've had alive. That sounds like a big statement, but it would be true. But it was extremely worthwhile, very, very worthwhile to be engaged in this. And I think if we as a church believe that we are created and that God exists, that it's amazing to think that the same God that we are here to worship this morning is the one who is behind the motivation of the missionaries who are in Lima and in Huaraz and all over the world. And that's also a big statement. But for us, it really hit home. I think there are two things, just to wrap up, that we learnt from our time in Peru. And for me, one would be that God had provided for us in massive ways when we were away. We had just bought a house not too far from here before we left. We had stable jobs, and yet career breaks were taken care of. We found tenants to rent our house who were friends of ours. Everything happened really, really quickly. Lots of doors opened, and for us, that kind of encouraged us and made us think that we were making the right decision. Nothing was hard, really, about leaving. People's generosity as well, their gifts to us, their time, their donations, their prayer, packages that arrived by airmail with chocolate and Tayto crisps. Actually, Ashley sent a massive box. I think he'd just gone to Tesco's, picked up a massive, huge Tayto crisp box. They can't get Tayto out there, that's fairly obvious to say. It's pretty far from Tandragee. But they all came as amazing affirmations almost that we were doing what we felt we had been called to do or nudged to do by God. And that people are patient with us, and that we were encouraged to develop our patience whenever things didn't go exactly as we'd planned. Because, to be honest, the mission field is a very unexpected place. What's the word I'm looking for? It's very unpredictable, thank you. Unpredictable place, and things don't often run to plan. So that will be one big lesson for me.
Was just a greater understanding of mission, and how, as was being read earlier, about the Spirit that is on us to preach good news, to bind up the brokenhearted, to release captives. That's not something that's just from the Old Testament in Isaiah's days, but it's something that each of us as Christians are called to do as well, and how we can do that at a local level and how we live our daily lives and the relationships we have with people. But we're also called to be involved at a global level, and that's not necessarily going, because not everyone will be asked to go, but it can be about supporting those who do through prayer, through money, even through emotional support like letters and emails and packages. And that overall mission, one big thing we learned, that it's not also about always big dramatic events, though sometimes those do happen. But our experience was very much that it's about the small details of every day and how God uses them, and how, it's not about what we managed to achieve. I mean, one thing we've struggled with coming home is people have asked, well, what did you achieve in your year? And they want to hear results, and that's a very Western way of thinking, and it's certainly a way we would have thought as well. But it's actually about realizing that it's not always about sort of big, dramatic, specific results, but it's more just recognizing that if you go and you serve and you give something over to God, you have to trust Him that He will use it, and that we're only one small part of a chain, and only one small part of God's big story, whether we're in Northern Ireland or wherever we are. And we just have to trust that He will use whatever we give to Him for His glory.
So can we say again, thank you very, very much for the opportunity to come this morning. It's been lovely to be able to share our time and mission with you, and to meet some of you. So thank you.